Okay, here we are. Hello, everybody. My name is Riley Hill, and this is my presentation on Daniel Pearl. Um, it's very interesting to me actually to learn about this because I had never heard of him before, but turns out he actually is a pretty impressive man. And with that, let's get started. So Daniel Pearl was an American Israeli journalist that was killed by the Taliban in 2002. At the time of his death, he was the South Asia bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal. He worked very hard to get to that position. He is a legend in the journalism community for not only being a super successful journalist, but also that he was a martyr of Judaism and also of journalism. He was known for putting his heart into his work and for making sure to get to the truth. He was born in 1963 to Ruth and Judea Pearl. Because of his father, Daniel had dual citizenship in Israel as well as the United States. He attended high school and college in California and then began work as a reporter. At the time of his death, he was living in Mumbai, India, for his job at the Wall Street Journal. So why is Daniel Pearl important? Why are we talking about it in this class? Daniel Pearl is important because of what he believed in and stood for. He was willing to do what needed to be done in order to report the truth. He was willing to stand up for what he believed in. That's something that is admirable in anybody. One thing that I read about him said that he has been remembered as a symbol of hope, a man who built bridges between diverse cultures, as a writer and a gifted musician. This is a man who used his talents to seek truth and to promote good in his life. He is most notably known for reporting on the War on Terror. When he lived in India, he would occasionally go to Pakistan to investigate and to find leads to report on, so that he could report to the American people and to the world what was going on. Daniel Pearl's death, when on one trip to Pakistan, he was kidnapped by a group of militants who called themselves the National Movement for the Restoration of Pakistani Sovereignty. They believed he was a spy. That's why they kidnapped him. They sent an email to the United States asking for a release of the prisoners from Guantanamo Bay. Obviously, that didn't happen, but there's a couple things that are admirable about Daniel Pearl and his death. His kidnappers offered to give him pills or sedate him before they killed him, but he denied. He didn't want anything to do with that. One thing that's also powerful is what he said right before he died. In the video they recorded of him, probably his most famous words are, my father's Jewish, my mother's Jewish, I'm Jewish. And those are pretty powerful words. He didn't deny what he believed in, even the very moment of his death. And he didn't want people to associate him with the terrorists that had kidnapped him. Daniel Pearl's legacy is felt in so many different ways. There's many books written about him. There's even a 4-movement musical work about him, and even the high school where he went to high school was divided and named the Daniel Pearl Magnet High School. He was also the first non-Holocaust victim to be added to the Holocaust Memorial on Miami Beach. That's also pretty impressive. Because he was a martyr of Judaism, they added him there. The Daniel Pearl Freedom of the Press Act. This bill was signed by President Barack Obama. In this picture, you can see on the very left, there is Daniel's wife, Marianne, and his son as well, that he never got to meet. At the time of his death, his wife was 4 or 5 months pregnant with their son. One thing I really like in the legislation, they wrote, "We hope this legislation will help the United States work with other nations to better protect his colleagues serving on the front lines in the fight for greater accountability and transparency. Freedom of expression cannot exist where journalists are not safe from persecution and attack. Our government must promote freedom of the press by putting on center stage those countries in which journalists are killed, imprisoned, kidnapped, threatened, or censored." That's pretty impressive that people consider him and think about him like that. One thing that I really liked is in the video of Daniel Pearl's death, he mentioned a street in the city of Bnei Brak in Israel. That's a city that Daniel's grandfather helped found, and they named one of the streets there after him. And I thought it was pretty impressive that Daniel had a history, his family had a history of creating and making things better, and Daniel lived up to that legacy. He helped to make things better. He helped people to know what was going on, and he helped people to know what they could do to be better. And not only in what he wrote, but in his example. I read lots of things about how he was a great friend and how everybody loved being around him. And that's the kind of people that we should be. We should be builders. And no matter what happens around us, no matter what goes on in our lives, we should always be willing to build others up, build the future, set a good example for our posterity. Anyway, this has been my report on Daniel Pearl. I hope you guys have learned something, and I hope we can apply a few things we've learned from this great man and his example.